You're listening to the African Clay Girl podcast channel. Oh my gosh, we're down to episode 3. So if you haven't watched the first one, please do click on the playlist on our podcast so you can check it out. All right, so let's just get into it. Episode 3, our topic for today is hiding your clay addiction. All right. Definitely, I know a lot of people can relate to this. I definitely can relate to it because I've done it and it's worked in the past, but now it's a bit different. And I'm going to explain why. Okay, so back then, I was a bit young, people never really paid that much attention to me, because I was a kid. So, what really could you pay attention other than me going to school and coming back home and stuff like that? So, I was able to hide my clay addiction, and no one really bothered trying to search through my things or, home life was very private. So, everyone respected each other's spaces and all that. So, it was easy for me to just, hide my clay addiction. I don't know about some of you, but definitely let me know how you guys hide your clay addiction, and have you been caught, and if you were caught, what happened? What are all the stories? Please do leave the comments down in the comment section below. And the funny thing about hiding your clay addiction is that now you have to look for weird places where you have to leave your clay, and sometimes you actually forget that you put it somewhere. Like maybe you put it in your pocket somewhere in one of your clothes, and you buried it in the in the clothes section, and then you forget about it, and then one day you're doing washing, and then boom, it just falls out and everyone sees it. So there's so many risky moves when it comes to hiding your clay and your clay addiction. So let me see, very good hideout places I would think of would be maybe in a place where no one really bothers going. But that can also be risky because one day someone will be like, yeah, I haven't really opened this cupboard in a while. Let me just, let me clean, or let me just check what's going on. So I usually buy tins, like it could be like a sugar tin or whatever, and then mine is see through, so obviously people will notice, and I don't have to hide mine now that I'm older because people do know that I do eat clay, but I don't swallow it, just to remind you about that. So they do know that I eat clay, so obviously I don't have to hide, but I do try and store it in a really um decent place where I can find it, where it's easily accessible and where it's out of the way from everyone else, so that I don't have to hear people be like, oh, there's your clay, oh, and that's kind of stuff. So a nice place to hide it is probably like you buy a nice tin, but definitely avoid glass because if you're clumsy, that could break, and then next thing you know, that's a whole nother story. So maybe a tin of sugar, and then instead of sugar, you put your clay in it, and probably use maybe a plastic seal where you can put your clay in. Because I've noticed if you put clay in maybe like a newspaper or just something that has an odor, it kind of like absorbs all that. So you want to put it somewhere where it just doesn't have to absorb anything. That's why I actually end up putting my clay in a glass jar, because it doesn't like what can it absorb from a glass, right? So you want to avoid places where there are certain odors, like washing, like your clothes, there could be like perfume left on maybe a jersey or your trousers and stuff like that, and then next thing you want to eat your clay, it has a weird, disgusting taste to it. So always try and find a place where it just doesn't have any smells or odors. um it's kind of tricky hiding it under the bed because there's a lot of dirt and dust that end up on the bed, and next thing you know, now you're bending over just trying to look for your clay and all that kind of stuff. So it has to be somewhere where it's just easily accessible. Like maybe your bag. If people don't like go searching into your bag, you can buy a little small tin for yourself, put a plastic cover around your clay, and then, yeah, somewhere close where you can just reach it and put it back and all that. Because I've noticed, if let's say you hide your clay in the house somewhere, and then now by the time you have to go get your clay, eat it, and then go and wash your mouth, that's a long distance. By then you're already caught. Someone already sees, okay, something's going on here. Why is she moving, you know like, why is she moving funny in the house? Something ain't right. So it shouldn't be so in a place where people can suspect something is going on. So a handbag is really a good place, because with women we have like plenty of pockets in our handbags. So I'm sure you can find one place where no one would even bother trying to even reach your bag. So a handbag is a really, really good one. I like that. I've heard people say they hide their clay in a shoebox. I don't know how that works, but I guess it works well with them. I mean, who looks in a shoebox anyway, right? So that's a really good idea also. So yeah. Another thing about hiding your clay addiction, I've noticed people hide their clay addiction from their husbands, from their kids, from their siblings, from their parents, from their boyfriends. It can be good in the moment, but let's say a complication happens and nobody knows what's really going on, right? And the next thing, you needed to be admitted into the hospital or in the ER, stuff like that. And then now they have to hear from the doctor, like, oh, we've run tests and we've done all sorts of things, and we have found out that so and so is eating clay, and because of this is what's happening. So I'm sure there have been really quite devastating stories of how people end up finding it out the hard way. So there's a good and a bad to it. Like, it's good to actually let people know around you that you do have a clay addiction. If you're working on it, tell them you're working on it. If you're not, this is what it is, right? And I'm trying to manage it at this point. But it's hard, especially if you're in an African family and if they're very against clay eating, because some African families, they understand, because some of the women do consume clay, even some of the older women. So they get it. They're probably not going to judge you, but in a home that's very strict, it's kind of hard to be open and honest and say, this is what I'm dealing with, because you're not met in most cases, you're not met with support, right? So you end up having to hide this addiction. But it can also be dangerous, because if something happens to you, at the end of the day, that's the last thing people want to find out. Oh, because she was eating clay, then this is what happened to her. And then that puts a negative look on clay eating because of the things that could happen, right? Another thing when it comes to hiding your clay addiction, sometimes, especially when you're not at home, because we mostly outside of the house than inside the house, especially during the day. Like, some people go to work, some people go to school, and all that kind of stuff. So you always want to make sure you have your clay kit. And when I say a clay kit, it consists of your lip gloss, wet wipes. Yes, I said it, lip gloss and wet wipes, and probably like gum. Gum can help a little bit, right? Because you want to make sure you have these three things, so that, especially when you eat clay, it's very messy, it stains on your mouth, and sometimes wiping it with your hand actually rubs it all over your mouth, because when it dries, it's gonna look all cracked up, like your lips are white or something. Meanwhile, it's just clay that dried up. So you want to make sure you have your wet wipes so that you can wipe the dirt and the stains off your mouth. And you want to make sure you have gum, because sometimes gum helps just gather all those things that stayed in your mouth. And I don't know, it just helps a bit, right? Cover up a little bit. And also, you want to make sure you have lip gloss, because eating clay can dry your lips up, right? And then they look cracked and chapped and all kinds of stuff. So after the wet wipe, after the gum, then you want to put your lip gloss just to cover it up, so that you can go by your day and you don't have to start explaining, oh, what's that on your mouth? Oh, you've got white stuff on your mouth and stuff like that. So always make sure you carry your clay kit. And I know this is the first time most of you are hearing it, but definitely that should be a thing with clay eaters. Okay, so the last thing I want to say about hiding your clay addiction. So here's the thing, especially if you're one of those women that like having regular checkups at the doctor, like probably once a year or a couple of times a year, I don't think hiding your clay addiction is going to be helpful for your health, because I feel like being open with your doctors is actually a good thing, because they are going to help you either reduce the clay cravings, or they're going to help you stop, right? So it's good, especially if you have that yearly maintenance on your body, just to check if everything's okay. It's always good to let the doctor know that you do consume clay, that this is what's happening, and then that way you know how to maintain your health, because hiding it is not always a good thing. As I've said before, it could cause a lot of complications, and you could avoid them sooner if you just open and honest, especially with your doctor in this case. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about hiding your clay addiction. I was not going to give you plenty of tips on how to hide clay, but definitely I think it's something that should be spoken about. And if you're in a household that's very scary to just open up about this addiction and all that, then definitely tell a friend, tell someone that cares about you, not someone that actually encourages you to eat clay and not watch your health. So, sorry. So, you should always be open with someone that's going to help you manage your clay addiction, because at the end of the day, it is an addiction, and an addiction can be bad or good depending on how you handle it. Sorry about that. All right, so guys, thank you so much for watching this video to the end. This is our episode 3, and I'm really excited to keep going and keeping this discussion about clay going. And if you have any topics that you want me to talk about, please do leave them in the comment section below as well. All right, so I'll see you next time for episode 4. Take care.